Union of Oil Products Importers declares that imports of petroleum bitumen in Georgia amounted to 7.8 thousand tons in April 2021, which is 2.8 thousand tons or 56% more compared to March, 5,000 tons, 93%, which means 7.3 thousand tons of import accounts from Azerbaijan, 6.4%, which is 500 tons from Turkmenistan.
In April 2021, the Producer Price Index for industrial products increased by 3.2% compared to the previous month, while compared to April 2020, the index growth amounted to 17.5%, show the preliminary data from National Statistics Office of Georgia, Geostat.
According to the report, the prices for manufactured products increased by 3.6% compared to March 2021, resulting in a 2.84 percentage point contribution to the overall monthly PPI change. Within the group, noteworthy price increases were registered for food products 2.2% and basic metals 12.2%.
In the same period, the prices for products from mining and quarrying increased by 5.6%, contributing to 0.35 percentage points to the monthly index change. The prices increased for electricity, gas, steam and air conditioning by 0.5%, contributing to 0.06 percentage points to the monthly index change.
Most companies in Georgia receive electricity either from the Telasi or Energo Georgia grid. However, 21 large companies have the status of direct customers and they receive electricity bypassing Telasi and Energo Pro. The report of the state company ESCO talks about the volume of electricity received by these companies during the first 4 months of 2021.
According to the document, Georgian Manganese consumes the most electricity among the companies, which consumed 384 million kilowatt-hours of electricity during this period. This volume of electricity was 8.3% of Georgia's total consumption. Other metallurgical plants like Georgian Manganese were added to the list of largest consumers. The list also includes companies engaged in the production of cryptocurrencies.
According to ESCO data, BFDC or Bitfury Georgia, despite they left mostly Georgian market, electricity consumption in the first 4 months of 2021 was 119.2 million kilowatt-hours, which is 53% compared to the same period in 2020. Accordingly, the company has increased the cryptocurrency generation capacity in Georgia this year.
As for the total data, in 2021, electricity consumption in Georgia increased by 5.1% and amounted to 4.5 billion kilowatt-hours. The increase in consumption is related to the increase in economic activity in the country compared to the previous year.
This is the Checkpoints, hosted and co-authored by Elena Kvanchilashvili and myself. I am Georgi Sakadze. It is Sunday, and we're here in the Forbes studio to tell you more about business and economics.
Yes, 10 p.m. sharp, and we start. One of the tolls that the pandemic had globally in Georgia is not an exception here, unfortunately, is that unemployment is increasing. In Georgia, we see the same tendency. Unemployment rate continues to hike amidst pandemic. In the first quarter of 2021, it increased by 3.7 percentage points compared to the same period of the previous year, and it now equals 21.9%. This is what the preliminary data from the National Statistics Office, Geostat.
You're absolutely right, Elena. This is what we read in the official report, which was released this week. In the first quarter of 2021, labor force, which means economically active population, constituted 48.3% of the working age population aged 15 and older, which is 3 percentage points less than that was to the corresponding period of the previous year, while employment rate decreased by 4.2 percentage points and equaled to 37.7. The labor force participation rate which is economic activity rate, in urban settlements decreased by 2.3 percentage points, while they decreased by 3.8 percentage points in rural settlements. The employment rate decreased in urban settlements by almost 5% and by 3.3 percentage points in rural settlements. In the first quarter of 2021, the unemployment rate in urban settlements increased by 5.7 percentage points compared to the corresponding period of the previous year, while in rural settlements that increased by 0.4 percentage points, the report reads.
One implication of this tendency that Giorgi Kakauri, the Deputy Finance Minister, has focused on is that the hiking number has resulted in growth of the state's social expenditures as well. Increase in unemployment has affected social expenditures. A certain category of families has fallen below the threshold when they need help from the budget, and this is an additional expense for the budget. However, it is a bit early to assess how soon the economy will recover after the lifting of regulations. Of course, some load will remain on the budget as a full recovery will not be possible this year. It is likely to take 2-3 years to return to pre-pandemic levels. That's what we heard from the Deputy Minister.
Who also added, by the way, that the second half of the year would be a big step forward in the direction of the economic recovery. From next year, it will be possible to access whether it is a steady increase of unemployment or not, how it will increase social spending. Deputy Minister Georgi Kakauridze has mentioned in his statement.
Georgi, it seems for Georgia there are three main ways it can recover its economy. First, exports, second, tourism, and third, FDI. I think in today's program we can elaborate on each of these factors with very interesting speakers and statistics. And let's start with the big premiere that took place in Georgia first and then globally, and tie this much anticipated event with tourism trends.
Great idea, Elene. More so that Mikhail Khidureli, head of Georgia's probably the largest state program, Enterprise Georgia, sat down with the checkpoints. He's always up to our interviews, and let me thank him from the studio as well. Fast and Furious filmed in Tbilisi, and much more from the CEO of Enterprise Georgia, and it's already a popular arm film in Georgia, and much more in our interview. So, Misha, congrats! We finally have Forsage. By the way, the reopening of Georgia cinema theaters are alongside with the premiere of Forsage 9. Yeah, do I remember correctly? It's a 9.
Yeah, Fast and Furious 9 is already premiered in Georgia, and we can say that people, not just in Georgia but around the world, and not just people, it's millions of people, are now able to see Georgian and Tbilisi streets in the movie. The last 10 minutes, which is the most intense part of the movie, where all heroes are kind of concentrated on, and the main fighting scenes and rallying and competition scenes are there. It's just in Tbilisi, and I think especially now during COVID times when you need marketing strategies, I think it's invaluable. It's really hard to estimate the marketing value that this episode will bring to Georgia in terms of the awareness of Georgia and especially Tbilisi, the cities and the streets that are seen there.
Which means the final movie, whatever was premiered, unfortunately I couldn't attend, thanks for the invitation anyway, it met all your expectations. Am I right, Misha?
I would say it exceeded our expectations because I was not expecting to see so many scenes and so many beautiful scenes. One thing is to let's say watch the movie itself, and the people will generally watch the movie itself and not concentrate on the streets. Yeah. But in this movie, you can actually see amazing views of Rustaveli Street, of the surrounding landscape areas. You can even see the Tatsminda part, there's Georgian police shooting at the heroes, and you get this.
Is it a true story that there is a part where Tbilisi is also identified as the mark?
Yes. So there are some different, the Fast and for the people who watch the other series, it's always happening in some other cities, right? So there is Tokyo there, London, it's Germany, I think it's Cologne, and then finally it says Tbilisi, and the last 10 minutes, everything's going on in Tbilisi. So this was that is very positive feeling of pride of seeing your streets, which you actually walk down every day in the biggest movie, and you realize and understand that this is something that is going to be screened on all continents, in all cinemas. It's not just a movie that, let's say, will only be shot and screened in one country, right? It's not anywhere. And the budget of the movie, and you can see that the things that are happening there are crazy. You know, there is a scene, for example, where they're flying with a car to the sky, and not just the sky, to the universe. And they're flying to the universe from Tbilisi. So, you know, this movie is crazy itself. It has a lot of special effects, and now you can see Georgia there as well. So I'm very proud of it.
Another story mentioning state agency produced in Georgia was coming from the government session, the latest one, if I remember correctly, where Prime Minister admitted about a very important agreement, which was later on followed up by the signatures of both World Bank and the representative of the Georgian government, stating that additionally $85 million has been attracted through the World Bank channels, and most of them, around 80 or 85% from this amount, will be diverted directly to producing Georgia state agency projects, which will help and benefit all the projects implemented by yourself and team. Please update us whether this is actually for the existing programs. We might have additional component during this pandemic period anyway, or what's going on with the money, which we're going to have, Misha, if I remember correctly, for 5 years, correct?
Yeah.
And it's a loan.
It's a loan. So for consecutive 5 years, we're going to have 68 million euros. Out of 85, 68 million will be diverted and specifically designated to Enterprise Georgia's Producing Georgia programs. So it will, on one side, support all existing programs that we have, and also the, let's say, increased demand on these programs. And on the other hand, we will add some other programs with the help of this loan. For example, we will have, there is a component of digitalization. So we will help Georgian companies and SMEs especially to become much more digital and to implement digitalization in their daily routine. So this is a process that we've been through, let's say, I think more than 6 months, I think almost 1 year. We did the compliance. I mean, World Bank did compliance audit for Enterprise Georgia's programs, and we have a green light, which means that it's a very good thing for
for any IFI worldwide.
Yeah. So we're happy about that.
Congrats with it. Maybe even besides having quite cheap money, it means that efficiency, you guys, your team and the agency are verified by the World Bank as a profitable, which means that you are quite effective. Yeah, congrats with that. Maybe personally for me, that's another fantastic news. Maybe even I'm more excited than the loan itself of 85 million. Congrats, Misha, and all the best wishes to your team.
Thank you, Georgi.
Thank you, Georgi, for a very interesting interview. You also touched upon a very important initiative in the post-pandemic period, and that's MSME sector and the support from the World Bank. We are fortunate that World Bank's country director in South Caucasus, Mr. Sebastian Molenius, is also always up to our interviews, and of course our many thanks from Forbes Studio as well. And we asked him as well on Friday about this project, and we can hear some more details from Mr. Molenius himself.
SMEs, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises really are critical for both the jobs agenda as well as the economic growth agenda as well. And in many ways, I believe that the pace of the post-COVID recovery will very much depend on the ability of firms to grow moving forward and pivot away from a very difficult time to a more prosperous future. So the big question now is, how do you achieve this? How do you get firms to grow, to create the economic growth and the job opportunities moving forward? And at the World Bank, we've actually conducted quite a bit of research on this particular topic. And essentially what we found are 5 key drivers. Number one, very important for countries to avoid size-dependent policies, for example, tax incentives. France, Japan have tried this and have found that it actually serves as a disincentive to grow, because firms only grow to a certain point and then stop growing. Second, having a strong enabling environment. Here, Georgia ranks 7th globally in the Doing Business Index, and we believe that has a very strong enabling environment. And then there are 3 critical factors that are so important to help them grow. One is access to markets, where I think Georgia is well positioned given the Free Trade Association and agreements that it has in place with Europe and in other countries as well. But there are 2 that I think our project addresses and that need to be built upon. One is access to finance, and 2 is access or better skills. And let me then pivot to the new project that you just spoke about. It's an $85 million support project for micro and small and medium-sized enterprises called the Georgia Relief and Recovery Project. And essentially this project has a short and a more medium-term focus. On the short term, we want to help small and medium-sized enterprises that are hurting from the pandemic.
To survive in the first place. To survive,
absolutely. Not zombie firms, not those firms that would have maybe have gone bankrupt anyways, but those firms that are suffering through no fault of their own because of some of the lockdowns and the restrictions that were implemented. Here, we essentially have 3 components to provide this short-term relief to these firms. Number one, we have a grants program for micro enterprises. Number 2, we help with the co-financing of interest rate payments for smaller and medium-sized enterprises. And then number 3, we are working with the current partial credit guarantee scheme that exists here in Georgia, which we're also helping to improve and to strengthen to make sure that more medium and larger enterprises can benefit. And very importantly, something that I'm almost proudest of is technical assistance and advisory service that we will be providing to firms to help them not only COVID-proof, but also to digitize their operations, both addressing their ability to adopt e-commerce platforms to provide better service delivery to people during the pandemic, but also to strengthen them for the long term, to make them more competitive. Those are the short-term areas. Over the more medium and the long-term areas, Elena, we actually, and I'm very, very happy about this, are working with the National Bank of Georgia to strengthen the instant payment systems. We're also modernizing the secured transaction and collateral registry framework. And then finally, we're also working with the Ministry of Justice and Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development with respect to digital verification identity, or eKYC, which is critical for types of transactions over, again, the long term. So all of this taken together, the short and the medium term solutions are going to have a major impact on businesses here in Georgia moving forward. And I would very much like to thank Enterprise Georgia that's going to be implementing the grants and the co-financing program. And all companies or enterprises that are interested in applying, as you had asked, should direct their attention towards Enterprise Georgia.
So it's open for everybody?
It is open, and the criteria are very clearly spelled out. And as you see, you have different modalities for different firm sizes. I would encourage all firms to go to the website, and I think you'll find all the information.
And let's move to our next factor, Georgi, then, and that's exports. In January-April 2021, exports of Georgia equaled 1.2 billion USD. That's roughly 20% higher year-on-year, showed the recent data published by Geostat. In January-April 2021, copper ores and concentrates reclaimed first place in the list of top export items, equaling USD 264 million, or that's roughly 30% of total exports. The exports of ferroalloys totaled USD 111 million, and their share in the total exports amounted to roughly 13%. The exports of wine of fresh grapes occupied the third place, standing at USD almost 67 million and constituting to roughly 8% of the total exports. Wine is something we will focus our viewers and followers' attention on today by presenting rankings of Georgian wine and also giving you the voices of some players on the market. How did the wine sector in Georgia not only survive the pandemic but continue the good track of exports as well? Our reporter Tatia Kakiashvili pulled together all this information, especially for the checkpoints.
How can Georgia be attractive to the tourists even during the pandemic? By its nature, beauty, hospitality, and of course the wine, which attracts the citizens of the region as well as the tourists from the countries of Europe and Asia. Although the pandemic year has been hard and challenging for wine companies, at least it was managed so that the representatives of the sector met these difficulties in a relatively prepared manner. Moreover, the production processes in these companies were almost not disrupted. The result of hard work, proper management and marketing campaigns is that today the wine produced in Georgia is in demand worldwide, not to mention the sales figures for the local market. According to one of the latest 2019 data, the top 10 wine companies in Georgia look like this: Kakhetian Traditional Winemaking, Bolero & Company, Askaneli Brothers, Sarajishvili, Patagoni, Georgian Beverage Holding, Telavi Wine Cellar, Chateau Mukhrani Group and GWS, Tbilwino, Winery Khareba. And yet, how did the wine companies manage to maintain their market positions and adapt quickly to the situation in a pandemic year? For Tbilwino, 2020 was marked by interesting and successful events along with difficulties. As soon as the pandemic was announced, the company completely reorganized its production processes and the company also adapted quickly to the pandemic situation.
We have put in place an action plan for both the local and export markets to maintain sales and grow as much as possible, because financially it was a very difficult year. If we take the export sales of 2020 together with the sales on Georgian market in 2020 compared to the previous year, we had an increase in total. In recent years, we have not only quantitatively strengthened the structure and team of the company, but also taken care of the development of our employees. One measure of this is constant trainings.
That attitude had paid off, and last year the company contracted with 5 new distributors in Europe, planted 42 hectares of Saperavi vineyard in Aniseli in Kinsmarauli microzone, also 54 hectares in Kinsmarauli and Mukuzani microzones, and nowadays Tbilwino vineyards include 356 hectares in total. Last year turned out to be a record year for Tbilwino in terms of recognition of wines produced by the company. Tbilwino won 31 medals in London at the most influential international wine competitions in the world: Decanter World Wine Awards London, International Wine Challenge London, and International Wine and Spirit Competition London.
It is an important task for us every year to not only increase sales but also to improve the processes in the company in general, including to increase the quality of the wine which we produce. Last year we won many bronze medals, 6 silver medals, 3 gold medals, 1 trophy and 1 champion title.
The company Patagoni is also in the ranking of top Georgian wine companies, and for them this year is special. Patagoni turns 15 years old. Clearly, the company has faced a number of challenges throughout this period, although the pandemic and accompanying difficulties have still turned out to be completely uncommon.
All of this has been brought about by the selfless work of the people who create this product today. It was during these years that they developed into professionals in their fields, and today any employee from viticulture to senior management is practically a professional.
Nowadays, products produced by Badagoni are presented in 32 countries around the world. Despite the pandemic, the demand for Georgian wine from countries around the world has almost not decreased. In order to achieve these results and adapt to the situation sustainably, the management of Badagoni had to make a number of changes.
At the beginning of the pandemic, we moved on and made the whole focus on the European market. And since the situation in China has stabilized, today we already have a very large shipments to China.
Until then, 2019 figures for the wine industry are public, and Forbes has already published a ranking of the companies as well. So enjoy.
And as a follow-up of our exclusive interview, our viewers and followers might remember how one of the most influential winemakers and prominent, trust me, worldwide, got interested in doing business in Georgia, and how Gocha and Louis Pasquet, the founder of LiberPatel, the company which produces the most expensive wine in the world, have become partners and are planning to work on the joint project together here in Georgia.
Yes, Georgi, I remember how Luc Pasquet promised you in your exclusive interview, and our viewers and followers in that interview, he would be back with a much more detailed plan on how to make Georgia, this time the country of the most expensive wine as well. He kept his promise, he came back to Georgia, but I won't say more. This time Maria Madamia will focus on further developments.
But you remember his quote or phrase, Georgia, Georgian wine is a sleeping beauty, like paraphrase from Russian, Spящая красавица. You will find the answer on this in this story
really?
as well.
How is Georgia a sleeping beauty?
Georgia is sleeping beauty.
Okay, let's see.
Ya no estás más a mi lado, corazón. En el alma solo tengo soledad. Y si ya no puedo verte, porque Dios me hizo quererte para hacerme sufrir más.
Exactly 3 months ago, we were telling you the story of reviving a long-forgotten, high-quality grape variety and one of the most expensive wines in the world, LiberPatel, which completely turned the wine industry upside down and offered the product to the market at a price that for some companies and wineries might be even equal to the annual revenue. We managed to talk to the protagonist of the story and the creator of LiberPatel. This is why we were the first to announce the plan to create an expensive, premium Georgian wine led by Gocha, the founder of Ascanelli, and the legendary Louis Pasquet, the world's most expensive wine producer.
Maybe the Georgia, it's a sleeping beauty, and you must wake up because it's a fantastic country, and I would like to visit you quickly to see what's happened about the wine. You know, Georgia, it's the most important country in the wine industry because the wine is born in your country. You have many autochthone varieties, and we cannot test your wine, and it's impossible to test your wine. We would like to discover your wine. We have a potential to make a beautiful brand. It's incredible because you have the history of the wine. So it was very interesting to discuss with Gocha to understand what is wrong with Georgia with the potential you have.
The French winemaker fulfilled the promise given during the interview. Today, he has arrived in Georgia for this very purpose and mission. He managed to travel with us, visit and outline what he likes and what he will use in order to turn Georgian wine into a world brand and take the industry to a height it has never seen before. This will be the Georgian history of LiberPatel, the foundation of which is being laid right now.
For the moment, the first step is to discover Georgia. So we travel a lot, we try to understand all the technique, all the terroir, all the varieties in Georgia. It takes a long time. We need to come back in July, we need to come back maybe in September to understand during the harvest. And when we will see everything, when we start to understand the Georgia, because it's, you know, it's the country where everything is born in the vine. So it's difficult to, you have a lot of varieties, you have a lot of terroir. It's like a treasure. So it's difficult to understand everything in 1 week. So we need to come back and come back and come back. And I'm sure we can do something.
According to one of the most expensive wine producers in the world, the problem of Georgian wine is not its quality, but incorrect marketing and strategy. He says that Georgia is counting on the wrong markets, for example, only neighboring countries and not Europe. Now is the time to correct these mistakes and take the right steps. Loic, together with the Ascanelli team, will create a new wine which will be presented under the brand of LiberPatel, but will be based on Georgian roots.
It is extremely difficult to convince customers to buy this wine at such a high price, but Loic managed to do it. This is why now is a historic moment for Georgia. We will finally achieve what was just a dream until now. I do not want to set expectations, but my gut tells me that this goal is achievable.
More specifically, Loic Pasquet, the owner of LiberPatel of French wines and the winemaker himself, plans to cultivate a vineyard in Georgia with the introduction of modern technologies and management. Goga Chhaidze, the founder of the partner company Ascanelli, visited UAE by special invitation, where the presentation and tasting of LiberPatel wines took place. Goga Chhaidze and his partners personally met with the owner of LiberPatel, and the idea of a joint project was born, which envisages the production of a completely unique wine.
You have everything to have a success because you are the country where everything starts. You have a beautiful vine, you have beautiful terroir, you have all the knowledge to make a good wine, but you don't push, so I don't know why. We cannot decide to plant today. Okay, we need to wait, to come back, to find the good plot. And I'm sure we have a good cooperation together, but it takes time. Wine is not an electronic product. You need to plant, to find the good soil, to plant. After we need to have a vinification. So maybe we need to wait 5 or 10 years before to have the first bottle of wine. So it's not like that. It's not industrial. It's not industrial product.
For almost 5 years now, business media has been covering business news in Georgia, the region, and the world economy. Of course, we have always been interested in the 8,000-year history of Georgian wine, its present and its future. For the first time, I'm telling you a crucial part of the history of Georgian wine, when the foundation is being laid for the cultivation and production of high-quality products in Georgia with completely different European approaches and vision, which will bring us closer to recognized European wine quality, modern technologies, and knowledge. There is a tangible prospect that the name of Georgian wine will conquer completely new peaks in 5 to 7 years' time with the cooperation of LiberPatel and Ascanelli. Today, French and Georgian winemakers are taking the first steps on this path in Georgia. We too continue to tell the Georgian history of the most expensive brand in the world with cautious optimism and joy. The sleeping beauty, as Loic Pasquet calls Georgian wine, will soon wake up.
So cheers to Georgian wine and its success locally and globally. And let's turn to the last but not the least factor for the economic recovery, as Elena announced, and that's FDI?
Georgi, since we still do not know exactly what Vasil Hudak's job description entails, I decided to play a little guess game, which I generally do not like, to tell you the truth. But at this stage, I think it is wise to ask experienced people in working with foreign investors what their expectations are of Mr. Hudak's activity in Georgia. And then, when finally either he comes to Forbes Studio or PM discloses more details,
maybe together.
We will have a chance to reveal a winner who was the closest to guess the exact duties of Mr. Hudak, former EIB vice president, who now acts as the advisor of the Prime Minister of Georgia, Irakli Garibashvili, on drawing FDI into the country. This time, Keti Kvartskava, a prominent Georgia lawyer and the member of the Business Association Women for Tomorrow, will answer my questions. Keti, welcome to the Checkpoints, and thank you for taking our questions. FDI has become a big issue for Georgia, with Prime Minister mentioning it as a top priority, especially in the post-COVID period for Georgia. This is something that businesses and business media was also waiting for, because for a while this focus on FDI has been somewhat blurred among the government. What is your take on that, and how do you view Georgia's chances for attracting FDI in the post-COVID period, when we all know that the competition for it will be much higher than before?
Yes, thank you for asking good questions. FDI substantially dropped in Georgia for the last years, and even before COVID crisis hit, actually FDI was quite lower than not only expected but needed. Let's say so. It is, of course, out of question that it is of utmost importance for the country like Georgia to attract not only portfolio investments, but the technology and knowledge from the larger companies, and to attract attention to the economy of Georgia. And obviously, and out of question, without any doubts, of course, it is important that the government finally actually shifted its focus to FDI. It is a positive message to the community out there that Georgia is thinking about attracting more foreign investments. Of course, there are a lot of efforts to be focused on that direction before it actually results in real kind of FDI flows into the country. But as such, the message is obviously positive, and
it was more than a message, though, right? Because Prime Minister said that, look, here we have a foreigner, a former EIB vice president, Mr. Vasil Hudak, who will also be partly responsible for bringing in FDI. What's your take on that, and how do you view, did we need someone else also to be responsible for that? Because that's also...
I would not shift responsibility from the government to anybody else, especially the advisor to the government. Obviously, the advisor's role is to advise and give good advices, and it is definitely very positive that the individual such as Mr. Hudak has been invited to Georgia to support kind of an attraction of the foreign direct investments into the country. And by his biography and his reputation, Mr. Hudak is definitely a very, very heavyweight person in the economic kind of sphere. And as a former vice president of EIB, of course, he has a lot of insights, and through his career, he's been actually acting as in the leading roles in the economic kind of positions, and he has a reputation worldwide, which is very important. And to me, it really sounds as a message, first of all, to the foreign business community, that the government is committed to make the efforts and kind of tackle those flows that there are in the Georgian system and market in terms of the FDIs, and we view it as a very positive signal, and as an action itself, right? I mean, we need to see consistent steps from the government that they are serious about their consistent kind of strive towards attraction of more kind of foreign direct investments, and it needs to be demonstrated further before it really actually translates into a serious
I generally do not like this guess games, but at this point we still do not know exactly what is, how to say, job description of
capacity and authority, right?
Mr. Hudak. So since you have that very extensive experience of also working with including foreign investors, what do you think would be some of the advice that this community might be waiting for from Mr. Hudak?
I think first of all, the foreign kind of eye is good for directing the focus of the government towards a really important kind of flows. That's very important, and obviously the business community is expecting the government to shift their focus into the more business-friendly kind of ways. Of course, we expect that Mr. Hudak will have a role and say in the further kind of economic development of the country. And of course, I mean, it's not going to be only the word and only the job title, we hope, and he will be listened and taken seriously by the government, and whatever he advises the government will be actually implemented, and that's the expectation actually. And we all know, and we all have certain expectations towards the future of this country and towards the systems, economic systems, legal systems, etc. We all know what's wrong with this country, and we need to actually work together to sort of clear these issues, and the government obviously has the leading role in that, and expectation is from the government to act on the advices of Mr. Hudak, I guess.
I don't know if you have watched the briefing, and that's why my question, I'm so into this guess game, because Mr. Hudak's focus himself was, I'm here for the certain project, and that project is for SMEs. There is this 50 billion euro pool for SMEs looking forward in the post-COVID period, and I'm here to bring some of that money and some of that support of EU to Georgia. And then on the other hand, there was the Prime Minister who also said that Mr. Hudak's advice would be taken seriously on, for example, PPP projects, right? And this is a very tough challenge for Georgia right now. We see number of projects in HPPs that are on hold, big or small.
Right.
We also know Anaklia, which is in the International Arbitration Court right now. So that's why what should be the expectation for Mr. Hudak, and that's why this question is lingering. It's like hanging.
As you rightly said, we are here left to guess, obviously, and to hope. Let's say so, because we all hope that the situation will improve to the best. It is important to have a focus on certain kind of areas, and that's it's important that Mr. Hudak already has some agenda about the SME and SME projects probably that could be implemented in Georgia. However, we all know that without improving the local kind of outlook of the country, not only on the figures but also on the hearsay, is very important. And hearsay will not be improved unless we have real examples and stories of successful foreign direct investments in Georgia, which we lack unfortunately. And I do really hope that the government will shift its attention to the existing projects as well, so that they create some sort of the history, successful history of the country where foreign investors can come and can strive and can thrive and can make business and sort of produce some goods and export or sell locally or get an advantage of their investments. And especially if we are talking about SMEs, then we're talking about the projects that could be focused on some sort of the limited market, right? Either Georgia or the market around Georgia. Which will need some more international focus also, like whether or not it will be possible to move around the goods successfully and swiftly, and whether or not we will be able to facilitate easy administration and real ease of doing business, not only in figures, let's say so. And what we have been observing so far for the last several years was that there were lots of administrative burdens added to the businesses in Georgia, lots of accountability added. Some were reasonable, but some were not. But we need to really get a good example within the country of success, like success stories. Let's put it like that, and that would definitely help the government in attracting the foreign direct investments. But otherwise, of course, I mean, as such. The shifting of the focus towards FDIs is very important, and appointing a prominent figure in the role of the advisor in that direction is very important. But as you said, like, we still hope that he will be given a real power, his words will be listened, and
What time should we give Mr. Hudak from the checkpoints?
Well,
let's say
not
so.
several days, obviously.
Of course, yes.
And we should not sort of, as I said in the beginning, like, it's the correct it's the way of correctly putting the shift of responsibilities, right? I mean, you cannot put the responsibility of the person who is not a decision maker.
Of course.
If he is given the role of the advisor, then if his advices will be sort of implemented, then obviously it will bring some results. If they're disregarded, obviously we cannot sort of blame the foreigner for something that we failed to do, right? So we need to have a clear focus.
I hope those advices will be transparent.
Right.
But that's only when we can judge whether his decisions were taken or not.
I think that Mr. Hudak, by his career, actually proved that he's a serious kind of figure, and he will definitely, and it will be, as you said, I mean, it will be very important to bring sort of the general advice and specific advices to the public, so that the public forms the opinion and then sort of request the government to perform on them.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing,
right,
with this guessing game as well. Thank you for taking part.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And before we wrap up for today, Georgi, let us mention the most important factor, and that's definitely vaccination. Okay. Currently, some more than 100,000 people are vaccinated in Georgia. As our reporter on BMJ English, Madonna Gassanova, wrote, this is despite the fact that while White House launched USD 250 million ad campaign to fight vaccine hesitancy, Georgia decided to adopt a no-spend-year challenge and save on vaccination campaigns. Well, you get what you pay for as it goes, and still this is a low pace to reach the national goal of covering 60% of the population by 2021. However, the demand on vaccination is mounting, and let's hope that vaccine loads will meet this demand soon.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the registration process with the Sinovac vaccine has already started just a couple of days ago. The vaccination process itself will start on May 24th. Where all years to see whether Sinovac will also meet WHO criteria for authorization for these issues. You have to follow Forbes Georgia Health platform, where the expert analysis and only relevant and true information from dedicated professionals is publicly available.
Yes, and in general, do follow Forbes G and BMG, both in Georgian and English. We work for you, and we can leave with
Sebastian, yeah?
Yes, with Sebastian Molenius's very emotional address to the viewers and followers.
Thanks,
why vaccination is
Thank you so much, Mr. Molenius, and we'll leave with his interview together with Elena Kvanchilashvili. It's a part of the interview which was held in Analytica studio just this Friday, but here is the checkpoints, and we are following the update. Thank you so much for being with us.
We know that there's still large parts of the population, in particular in rural Georgia, who still have a large degree of vaccine hesitancy. And here, I just want to reiterate, it is really so critical that people get vaccinated. I think, vaccines are not new. People have been vaccinated against the flu and other diseases for decades.
Pandemic
the
is new.
medium-term effects of vaccines are minimal, if any at all. Again, the history of vaccines show this. And if you look at the short-term effects, yes, there have been individual cases of blood clotting and other diseases, but if you take a step back and look at the risks of something happening from COVID versus the risks of actually taking a vaccine, I think the risks of having COVID far outstrip and outweigh those of not getting vaccinated. And if I could just say personally, I had COVID. Unfortunately, I had COVID. It was a mild case. I'm fine. This was 1.5 months ago. No worries. I am safe. But what I did want to say is this, although I had mild cases, it's something that's scary, and you do worry. And I do not wish this upon anybody. The first moment that I am eligible to get vaccinated, Elena, I will be vaccinated. And I would hope that others do the same.
Of course.